My mind was on fast forward, rewind, and play all at once while I buried my face back into my tear-soaked pillow. I lifted my head just enough to glance at the nightstand. Grief felt like the weight of the world pressed into my shoulders. I let out a long, tired sigh. Oh Lord, I muttered, rolling my eyes as they landed on my favorite picture of me and my mom. Just like that, my brain jumped straight into another memory. It was this impulsive tradition, something we only did if my dad's fisherman friends scored a deal too good to pass up. Every time I think about summer, my whole body remembers that warm breeze and the wild, messy energy of our clam boils. I swear I can almost taste the food before my memory flips to the moments after dinner. The sun was gone, the joy and the laughter still hanging in the air, and everything felt even more magical once the bonfire was lit. Flames popping like they were in on it. Wrapped in the warmth of the fire, she'd lean in, her smile full of enchantment. Her voice pierced my mind, clear as ever. My dad always says our ancestors told stories about walking the right path and working together. She told many stories, each very different, but they all carried the same lessons. The details changed with whatever chaos our family was facing, but they always returned to the responsibility we carry to live with intention and to do better, not just for ourselves, but for the generations to come. She explained that every choice we make today sends a ripple forward to shape those 7 generations ahead. The ripple does not stop there. It moves backwards as well, reaching 7 generations before us. And somehow it offers healing to those who carried the weight long before we were born. She would talk about the teachings of love, respect, bravery, truth, honesty, humility, and wisdom. These were more than ideas. They felt like they were instructions for how to live in harmony with all creation. The stories reminded us that we do not own the earth. We are borrowing it from the future. And we need spiritual strength to make choices that protect the people we will never meet. So just think about that for a moment. Could we really have the power to shape our emotional DNA and impact our bloodline in such a profound way? To me, her fireside stories were not just tales because they spoke to my soul and they felt like ancient wisdom, lingering inside of me just like the way smoke rises and slowly fades into the sky. As I watched this memory unfold before my mind's eye, I realized how many of us avoid wisdom just to avoid pain. Somehow prove that the real generational curse is avoidance. We are born from those who stayed silent, who pretended the trauma did not exist. But pain demands to be felt, and one day a child arrives who feels everything. That child is you. You are the one breaking the cycles, fighting battles your parents could not, and healing the wounds they never named. People may try to label your depth as anxiety, depression, ADHD, or OCD, but maybe feeling deeply is just part of being human. Maybe it's just the one task that only you could do. Perhaps you were born to hold the chaos your family avoided, to open it, to make sense of it, and to transform it. If you're anything like me, your lineage is full of contradictions. Beauty and damage, trauma and resilience, love and neglect, strength and silence. Your ancestors were flawed and brilliant survivors, doing their best. Their stories live in you like a tree rings, each one proof you have already weathered storms and bloomed again. Even as a child, you felt it, your mother's sacrifices, the silent force of love and survival moving through your bloodline. Your DNA carries history you did not choose, pain that is not fully yours, and patterns that repeat. How do I heal all this energetic pain and sorrow left behind after her death? How do I let go of what isn't mine to carry, even when I'm not sure what I'm carrying? I could not label it or organize it. Yet the weights kept showing up over and over and over as heartbreak. I just knew I was no longer going to let things out of my control break me anymore. I accepted that breaking a generational curse is not about knowing every detail or rejecting the past. It is about facing it head on. Honoring your ancestors does not mean carrying their burdens forever. It means recognizing they did the best they could with what they knew, letting go of what isn't yours, and being wise enough to see which insecurities or patterns belong to them, not you. It is a delicate balance that takes respect and the courage to change. I've learned that healing from pain that is not entirely yours is entirely complicated. It is subtle, hard to pinpoint, but deeply felt. It rises in the patterns you recognize, in the cycles that started long before you existed, in echoes of a history that is not fully yours but still lives inside of you. This thought planted a seed, the intention to finally heal by making peace with everything, both the things I understood and the ones I didn't. Choosing to embrace the saying, "It is what it is and what's done is done," somehow became my path to peace. I learned to care for my own energy by filling the pain with acknowledgement, acceptance, and love. To honor that my suffering is valid. To accept that you are not here to fix everything. You are here to feel it, transform it, and make space for something new. Our energy can be so influential. Shit. I know my energy influences every space I enter, even when I don't want it to. It made me think about the lasting energetic imprints that leave patterns behind, ripples that shape entire lineages, like some kind of cosmic echo. That reflection brought my mind to my earthly family history, a story I never felt connected to and never really wanted to explore. What little I knew offered some historical context. My maternal grandmother, one of 9 siblings, grew up on Iowa farmland. Her childhood was defined by daily chores, feeding animals, milking cows, and helping with the crops, which I am sure is what instilled her strong work ethic and deep connection to the land. She lives with an unwavering faith and deep devotion to her family. She is one of the sweetest souls I know, a multiple cancer survivor. She has been tested again and again, yet always continues to move forward with almost what appears to be a blind optimism and an unshakable Catholic faith. My mom used to say her dad grew up with a dirt floor in his family home. Honestly, I'm not sure if that was true or if it was just how she told it to emphasize his hardships. I was once told he was born on a reservation in Oklahoma, but the older I get, the less I'm sure that's even true. There are so many versions of his story now. It's basically turned into folklore. What I do know is that he had claimed to have Choctaw and Cherokee roots, ran away from home, lied about his age to get into the Navy, fought alcoholism, and somehow pushed through all of it to become an engineer and a business owner. My mom always said he could play the electric guitar almost as well as Carlos Santana, and that his music was what influenced her musical ear. And that's all I knew. Just a handful of details, full of gaps like an unfinished puzzle. But my mom, she never saw the missing pieces. To her, her parents were nothing short of a complete, extraordinary puzzle. She carried her maiden name, Lord, with a loud pride, even getting a license plate that read, "Oh Lord." Because to her, our family's past was a story of overcoming and triumph, of resilience and faith, of love and chaos, a balance of good and bad, a story that makes everything completely whole. Even with all those stories, I never really felt like I belonged there. Like maybe their struggles and their triumphs were theirs, but not mine, and yet it influenced me. I could hear the pride in my mom's voice, but I couldn't feel the same connection. It was like looking at a puzzle that was already completed, and I was not even sure where my pieces could possibly fit. My dad's story was different. He was born to teenage parents in 1960, a time when being such carried both stigma and struggle. His parents were just kids themselves, thrust into adulthood before they were ready, doing their best to raise him while still trying to figure out their own lives. In the end, it was his grandparents who took him in, raising him as their own. They gave him more than a home. They gave him the kind of unwavering love that left no room for doubt. He was deeply bonded to them, and their care shaped him in ways that have lasted his lifetime. Unlike my mother's fragmented lineage, my dad's family's history is carefully recorded, stretching back centuries. In some ways, it felt like his past had already been written, each generation chronicled, each name accounted for. But that did not mean his story was simple. He still had to carve his own path, battle his own demons, and make his world a better place, paying it forward and doing the best he could with the cards he had been dealt. He is a man who is sure of himself. He knows where he's been and where he's going, for the most part. Over time, I started to notice patterns in both sides of my family. The stubbornness that refuses to quit, the blind optimism that pushes forward no matter what, the love that shows up even when it's messy. All of that was in me too. I didn't grow up on a farm. I was not a teenage parent. I did not fight in the Navy, and I don't play the guitar like Santana, but somehow their energy lingers inside me. It shapes the way I feel, the way I hold space for others, the way I notice the little threads that connect people and experiences. Maybe that's the thing about family. You don't just inherit names or stories. You inherit the energy, the struggles, the magic, the chaos. And because of free will, we get to decide what to carry forward. And that's when my thoughts just stopped spinning for a second. I caught my breath, wondering if I was missing pieces of my own puzzle, since I never felt like I fit into theirs. Was I lost without direction? How could I know where I was going? Was it because I knew this history? Because I'm so aware of psychology? After all, these combinations of DNA make me who I am. Before I could think any further, my head began to spin again. And then, suddenly, I was back there. My mom in the living room, all bold and loud and possibly colorful, singing, "If I were you, I'd want to be me too." Like she was center stage, and I thought, me too. Weird, sudden, like something inside of me shifted. It wasn't just her energy or her story. It was something way older, bigger, like my ancestors were there with me, laughing and crying and moving through the same blood, the same stubborn streak. I sat there watching the memory, noticing how she smiled like nothing could touch her. The way she spun around, sassy and full of life, like she was almost hiding something. There was always this quiet sadness she had tucked away, somewhere I couldn't reach, yet I could always feel it lingering at the edges of the room. Somehow I felt it in my core, and I knew it wasn't mine, not really, but it was there. A weight that finally made sense once I saw it. She, like me, carried all of it. The joy, the pain, the endless giving, the quiet strength. And still, despite the weight, she kept shining light on us. In that moment, I understood. The stubbornness, the blind optimism, the ability to love fully even when you're running on empty. The weird, wild magic of carrying family in your body and in your blood. And I saw all of me in her because it was me too. I had become her in a different season. I was them, this was us, and now us no longer included her. It was just me and my siblings now, and I've always had this overdeveloped sense of responsibility towards them. And then I remembered reading an article. It was about how older siblings pass their DNA to their younger siblings through their mom in something called microchimderism. That's when it all hit me. It wasn't that I just helped raise them. It was that I felt responsible purely out of emotion. I had actually contributed on a cellular level to shaping who they are. No wonder why I felt so responsible. And just like that, memory and lineage collided. Suddenly, I wasn't just looking at a puzzle anymore. I was a part of it. How had I not seen it before? Exactly where my piece belonged in this puzzle of life. the piece that connected my mom, my ancestors, me, and the future of us. My mom singing "Me Too" echoed in my mind. I felt this bond deep in my soul, which made me think about souls we don't share blood with. When Destiny came into our lives, it felt like our souls had known each other forever. The second she walked through the door, it was like time bent or something. And we just knew each other, like finally finding family you didn't even know was missing. You see, she was my sister's best friend, not even mine. And like many of our friends, she quickly became a permanent fixture in our home. I'll admit, I sometimes resented how often our house became a refuge for others. It felt like there was never any space that was truly ours. But that was besides the point, because naturally we renamed her and started calling her Tiny, half because she was petite and half because Tiny is in her name, Destiny. She stayed with us for almost 2 years. Her home life was all over the place. It seemed scary a lot of the time. But with us, she found somewhere to belong. Somewhere she could be herself, feel safe, feel cared for. By the time she left, it was clear that she had become part of our soul's family, deeply linked to our family dynamic. I thought about how there were so many other souls too, way too many to count, that had been destined to find our families so we could play the same role in their own stories. My mind remembered texting Tiny recently about how we both missed Our Lady. And she sent this huge message that completely wrecked me in the best way. As if it had been burned into my mind, the message read, "There wasn't anything she failed at. She's still the strongest and sweetest lady. She showed me it was possible to love someone and to treat them right even though they aren't family. If you were hers, she provided love and guidance. I adored that about her and tried to be the same way. She always made sure everyone had something to eat, always cooking. She asked me about everything, from school, home life, and mental, which I didn't have a chance to do with my own parents. Everyone goes through a lot in their life, and I'm sure she went through things herself, but she remained positive always, happy and always ecstatic. What I learned from my parents was disciplining with a lot of hate and ignoring. And yet Lady was a firm punisher. She guided and led with positivity. She told me I could stay whenever, and sometimes I felt like a burden being there, or when your sister and I would argue because we were spending so much time together. She reminded me that I wasn't a burden and was happy for me to be there. She cared about my grades, getting them back to where they should have been, and would help me with my homework. Reading those words made me wonder not just about Tiny, but about all the kids and adults whose lives she impacted. It also made me reflect on all the pain they carried and the pain their parents must have carried too, because hurt people, right? I thought about the duality within all of us, destruction and healing, peace and war, love and hate. We all carry that, so we all have a responsibility to embody the traits we value, to live with intention, and to lighten the karmic weight we leave behind. It's up to us to choose what we cultivate. Life can be a journey of growth, navigating the heavy burdens of the world, or it can feel like an everlasting prison. But it can also be full of freedom and moments that feel like you can touch heaven itself. There is a lot of evidence that our souls chose to be here, to experience life lessons. And they can be found in systems like astrology, human design, and soul contracts, all suggesting on some level that we consciously selected this path. Just as our genes can be activated or silenced by life experiences, environments, and choices, these changes can ripple throughout the generations we belong to. Perhaps the clues are already there around us, subtly guiding us back to where we're always meant to be. Does that seem far-fetched? I sighed. I wiped the tears from my face and exhaled, oh Lord. Before my focus returned, letting go of circumstances, chance, and probability altogether. I know a soul family runs deep, unexplainable connection. There's this invisible thread that pulls us together when the time is just right. Sometimes they even mirror our real families, not through DNA, but through emotional and spiritual bonds that never seem to fade. We know trauma can pass down through generations, leaving marks on our genes that shape the next ones. So it makes you wonder if our souls carry their own kind of memory, echoes of what we lived through before. Maybe that's why some connections feel instantly familiar, like old souls, like our souls have been meeting each other over and over and over again. And our bodies can remember pain through our genes. And if our bodies could remember pain through our genes, could our souls remember love the same way? Well, science suggests that trauma doesn't end with the person who experienced it, because epigenetics provides proof that experiences, environments, and stress can shape gene expression while altering DNA itself. These changes live in the body, not just the mind, quietly passing through generations and influencing how we meet pain, resilience, and the world. It parallels the concept of generational curses, where emotional and psychological wounds of one generation leave lasting imprints on the next, shaping behavior and health in unseen ways. So what if every choice our soul makes and how our bodies respond to them is part of a quiet generational dance, a subtle unseen force guiding us back toward healing, toward each other, and ultimately back to where we're meant to be. It is a path that leads us home, to the very essence of our being, to nirvana. Have you ever felt an unspoken connection with someone, as if your souls remembered each other? When we hear the term soulmate, most of us think of love and romance, but it is so much more than that, because it's not always romantic. To me, a soulmate can be anyone who touches your heart deeply, whose presence impacts your life in ways you can't fully explain. I believe we're all playing roles in the grand performance of life, connected by spirit of our souls. Parents, too, are soulmates. Whether they created trauma or healed it, they are here living this life for the first time as well. That is part of the perfect, messy, emotional experience of being human, whether or not we have ties to our parents or not. Their souls still chose to bring us here. And if they couldn't fulfill that role, the universe finds a way to make it right across time, space, and lifetimes. A parent being a soulmate basically means your kid's soul picked you on purpose to shape who they are and who they become. Doing this right is kind of like epigenetic homework, at least to me, because the effort you put into healing actually sends signals to their DNA, helping wipe out old trauma, not just for them, but for anyone who comes after them. I continued to cry, thinking about motherhood and the bond now shattered between my mom and I. Yet she didn't feel miles away. She was right there in my heart. I gasped for air, choking on salty tears. My thoughts shifted back to a saying. They say a father becomes a parent the moment they hold their child, but a mother becomes a mother the moment she is with child. I guess there's this primal shift, and those next 10 months are spent preparing you in a way both seen and unseen to take on a new responsibility. My memory replayed the first time I felt this weight. It was one afternoon, and I found myself sitting on a swing at my childhood playground, reflecting on my mother's words. Children are products of their environment. I had seen that truth play out in my own life, and now I couldn't help but wonder what kind of environment my daughter would grow up in. My daughter's biological father had just told me he was moving 16 hours away, a choice he made on his own with no room for discussion. He firmly insisted that I stay with our family so our baby could grow up surrounded by them, as if that was the only way forward. I felt devastated. As the weight of single parenthood settled into my reality. I had hoped for a different outcome, but as it settled in my chest, my mind raced with thoughts like, "You're alone now," and I needed to convince him to stay so our daughter wouldn't grow up without him. I wrestled with every possible scenario, each one always ending in a battle. I didn't want to fight. I knew I had to choose my battles carefully, not just for myself, but for the little girl whose future would be shaped by the decisions I made today. More than anything, all I wanted was for her to grow up happy and free without carrying burdens that were not hers to bear. As I pushed myself higher on that swing, trying to let go of my worries, I realized I had come up to a crossroads. 2 roads lay before me, and they were never to intersect. One was the road of revenge, the temptation to make him pay for what felt like abandoning fatherhood, abandoning us. But I knew deep down that revenge would lead to bitterness, and being right would only stir my anger at all the injustices. The other road led to happiness, one that required forgiveness to the apology I knew I would not get, to release the past and to choose peace, It was as if the devil and an angel were on my shoulders, fighting over which path to take. Was I going to take the road towards being self-righteous or towards peace? My mind pulled me back into my mom's words during our heated arguments. Bethany, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? As a stubborn teenager, I always insisted on both. But now, in this moment, I understood because I was accountable and self-aware enough to recognize that my intentions had to be pure throughout, that my intentions had been pure throughout our relationship. I had done my best to keep my side of the street clean, and I knew whatever I chose next would create more karma. At that point, I wanted to detach from the entanglement of pain, so I let go of the need for revenge, trusting it all to karma's hands. I surrendered to the idea that his actions and choices were not in my control. The only control I had was over my reactions, my choices, and my immediate environment. I closed my eyes and I felt my legs pumping as they moved back and forth on the swing, pushing higher and higher, pendulum-like between my thoughts. When everything inside of me began to shift, it wasn't this sudden dramatic break, but a quiet, slow unfurling, like the first green shoot breaking through the winter's hardened earth. My heart, once burdened by the echoes of bitterness, began to heal. I felt it. A silent pain passed down like an heirloom, loosened its grip, and suddenly released its hold on me. I didn't even know what I was healing in that moment. I couldn't name it. I just felt it deep and sharp, like some invisible splinter finally working its way out. It wasn't like I decided to fix any one thing or select a conscious pattern. It was more about choosing happiness, love, and peace. I knew it meant something big, but I didn't fully understand it yet. It wasn't really about forgiveness, and it definitely wasn't about forgetting. It was about moving forward without dragging the past behind me, about not letting old wounds shape what comes next. And more than anything, about keeping those weights off of her little shoulders. It was about not being scared to be a mom on my own and realizing that control was never really mine to have in the first place. My mind was still stuck on motherhood, and it fast forward to the couple of months later when a memory came clearly into focus. I was not due until New Year's, and I had no idea if I could make it that long. My body had begun to feel like a prison. Every day, it felt like I gained a pound or two. Every extremity swollen, feeling like a beached whale. It was a few days prior to my 36-week checkup when I began spotting, which led to a dizzy spell and migraines and every symptom of preeclampsia. But there was no protein in my urine, so that diagnosis never fully aligned. When my appointment came that Monday morning, I wasn't sure what to expect, but I hoped they would recognize my discomfort and decide to induce me. They took my blood pressure, and it was way too high. So high, the machine wouldn't pick it up. So before I could even advocate for myself, I got my wish, and they started the induction right away. By mid-afternoon, I asked for an epidural, but to my surprise, it failed, numbing only the lower part of my right leg. I felt every ounce of pain of childbirth as the day gave way to the cold winter night. The thing about labor is that it literally splits you open, every muscle working in unison to bring new life into this world. But it's like your mind detaches, and all the excruciating pain you just experienced seems to disappear the moment she arrives. She came into this world at 8:58 p.m. As I held her for the first time, her tiny fingers curled instinctively around mine. And something unspoken settled within me. Her presence was pure, untouched by the burdens of this world. She was the energy of love, and in that instance, her love began to heal my broken heart. My mind flashed back to the moment on the swings and the path I had chosen. As I gazed at her radiant face, the thoughts came softly that it had worked. I had broken the link of pain within us. I held her within my fortress and kept her safe from the pains of the world. I continued, looking into her beautiful brown eyes, framed with thick dark lashes and the tiny beauty mark above her lip, and I knew the world would be hers. She had no baggage, and I understood that she would carry later was in some way handed to her by me. My thoughts, memories collided into this epiphany because I now realized that epigenetics isn't just science. It's energy. It's an invisible force flowing through generations, flowing through our souls, carrying both blessings and curses. It is the rhythm of love and trauma weaving through us, shaping our paths, binding us in ways we can't always see, but can most certainly feel. The blessings and wounds of our ancestors don't live solely in the past. They ripple outward and settle into the present, reshaping our landscapes of our lives. Love and trauma never stay confined. They multiply, stretching through time and finding new ways to show up in each generation. And in my family, the struggles look different, but they always circled back to the same thing: emotional and mental baggage, battles between poverty and wealth, lessons about lack and abundance. Our whole reality swinging between extremes. In between my breaths, I sighed, "Oh Lord." I felt like there was a tug of war in my mind, and honestly, I could not understand what was happening or why I was crying so hard. Memory after memory kept pulling me in. I kept wondering if this was some kind of existential crisis, or if it was my mom trying to talk to me, trying to show me all the information and memories, all the things I suppressed deep within and chalked it up to chaos. I could not tell you exactly what it was. All I knew is that my head was spinning with connections and lessons, and oh Lord was right, because it was draining and overwhelming on one hand, but on the other, it was one of the most unexpectedly beautiful things I had ever experienced. That's when I sat up in my bed for the first time all morning. I began wiping away some of my tears as I realized that these beautiful, wild connections come from the conscious deliberate decisions we make while breaking cycles. Not just once, but continuously, as the opportunity to create a new future presents itself again and again. I thought about the present day and my life with my daughter, and how I try my best to fill our lives with joy, grounding it in small, everyday moments. I know our home is filled with music and laughter, where love outshines pain. We do not fight pain, we honor it, because you cannot have highs without the lows. I know life has brought us so much loss, that it has been my job to teach her that happiness is not a fleeting moment, but a foundation, one we will build together, brick by brick, smile by smile, breath by breath. Ooh, that was a hard one to read.